Frank's world was a study in soft gray and warm sepia, not for lack of color in the leaves outside his window, but because that's how the memories tasted. The brightest splash of color, the truest black and white, was the dog sleeping at his feet. Duke, an old, heavy-boned black and white Labrador retriever. They lived in a small clapboard house that smelled of pipe tobacco, old books, and the faintest hint of salt water carried on the sea breeze. Frank, with his hands gnarled like winter oak roots and a face crisscrossed by laughter lines and worry, was as worn in and comfortable as his favorite armchair. Duke, 9 years old and moving with a noticeable dignified stiffness in his hind legs, was his shadow, his confidant, and his only consistent company. They had a rhythm built over years of quiet routine. The day began not with an alarm, but with the soft thump of Duke's tail against the wooden floorboards. Frank would wake, brew a pot of coffee black enough to see the future in, and listen to the weather report on his ancient transistor radio. "Sounds like rain, old boy," Frank would murmur, rubbing the thick fur behind Duke's ears. Duke would lean into the touch, a deep, satisfied groan rumbling in his chest. The morning ritual was the walk. They didn't race anymore, they ambled. Frank wore a tweed flat cap and carried a stout walking stick, which Duke knew was less for support and more for pointing out a particularly interesting smell in the dew-soaked grass. They'd walk the 2 blocks to the pier, their steps falling into a slow, measured cadence. Tap-tap of the stick, thud-thud of the heavy paws.
At the pier, they'd sit on the same bench, Frank gazing out at the restless expanse of the Atlantic, and Duke staring intently at a flock of gulls he had long ago given up chasing. The sea was their shared canvas, a place of reflection for Frank and a place of fascinating odors for Duke. Frank would sometimes pull out a pocket-worn piece of leather and a small needle, beginning the slow, careful work of repairing the straps of Duke's old harness, an activity he no longer needed to do but found deeply comforting. Their afternoons were reserved for the library. Frank, a retired history teacher, still loved the smell of aged paper and leather binding. He would settle into a worn armchair in the corner of the reading room, the light slanting in and illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Duke, a dog of excellent temperament and even better manners, would lie on the cool stone floor, resting his muzzle on his paws, his large, intelligent eyes occasionally opening just enough to check that Frank was still there. Suddenly one morning, Frank fell ill, and his daughter took him to the hospital. While he was in the hospital, the doctor told his daughter that he would not live long. A few days passed like this, and then one day, the room is softly lit by afternoon sun.
Frank, frail, lies in a hospital bed. His breathing is shallow. His daughter, Anna, sits beside him, holding his hand, tears pooling in her eyes. A gentle knock on the door. Anna looks up. Nurse Sarah, warm, professional, stands in the doorway, a look of quiet compassion on her face. With her is Duke, an old, slightly gray-muzzled Labrador, who looks nervous but instantly recognizes the scent. "Oh, Duke." Anna quickly wipes her cheeks and moves to hold the dog's collar, giving the nurse a grateful look. "Just for a few minutes. We made sure he had a fresh bath. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much." Nurse Sarah nods and steps out, closing the door softly. Duke whines, a low, guttural sound of distress and longing. Anna leads him to the side of the bed.
Frank opens his eyes slowly. When he sees Duke, a genuine, luminous smile, the first in days, breaks through his exhaustion. "Hello, my good boy." Duke places his front paws gently on the mattress. Frank slowly lifts a trembling hand, finding the familiar velvet of Duke's ears. He scratches him exactly where Duke likes it. Duke leans into the touch, closing his eyes, letting out a deep, trembling sigh that sounds like a sob. He licks Frank's wrist once, gently.
"I knew you'd come."
"I knew it. Who's gonna steal more socks now, eh? Who's gonna bark at the mailman? You protect the house now, you hear? Be a good boy for Anna." Anna sinks into a chair, watching the exchange, covering her mouth with her hand to stifle a sob.
The connection between the man and the dog is palpable, a lifetime of loyalty in one shared moment. Frank pulls Duke's head closer and rests his cheek against the dog's fur, savoring the scent and warmth. "That's my boy, my beautiful boy. Thank you for everything." His hand slows on the dog's head, lingering there, his eyes flutter closed, his expression settling into a state of profound peace. Anna walks over and gently pulls Duke back. "It's time, old man. Say goodbye." Duke gives a final soft lick to Frank's cheek, then allows Anna to lead him toward the door. As they exit, Anna takes one last look at her father, who is smiling faintly in his sleep. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out.